Charles Saraspe with Midas, and today I'll just be going over how to use the basic CAD-based commands for SoilWorks. I just want to make it clear that currently I'm in the slope module of the program, which specifically handles slope stability analysis. But just keep in mind that these CAD-based commands that I'm about to show you, they're uniform throughout all of the other modules except for the foundation module, as well as the rock module. Those have very sort of specific design commands. For example, if you're working in the ground module, the soft ground module, or the seepage module, you'll be able to access these commands. So for those of you who are familiar with AutoCAD, who have had experience using it, all these commands should be very similar, or very familiar anyway. For those of you who have experience using AutoCAD, you'll be able to very easily translate your skills from that program into SoilWorks. So let's take a look at our CAD-based commands. So in order to access them, just click on the Geometry tab, and once you do so, these three main tabs will come up: tabs for creation, or excuse me, commands for creation, transform, so to move or change existing drawings or existing elements that you've made, and then modify. So these will just sort of change or alter. These are just sort of another set of commands that will alter geometry that you've created using these commands here. Okay, so let's start off with the most basic command. Let's say you want to draw a line. What you can do is you can select the Line tab here, select that, and what you can do is you can draw them freely, just using your cursor here. Just keep in mind that all of your coordinates are recorded or displayed here to the bottom right, so your X and your Z coordinates, so you can use that as a reference as you draw your lines. Okay, so here I've just drawn just sort of like a rhombus or a quadrilateral shape, very simply. And let's say I want to delete it. All you have to do is box it in, make sure all of it's highlighted, and then press delete, and then your object will be deleted. So that's just the basic gist of how to use the line option. So if you want to draw a line with maybe more specific coordinates, or something, say you just want to punch in the coordinates of your line and draw it that way, what you can do is you can type them into the command bar. So this time, what I'll do is I'll select Geometry, Line, and I'll specify my first point. So I'll start off at the origin, so 0, 0. And as you can see, when I put my cursor over the work window, now a line is extending from the origin. So let's say I want to choose my next point. Let's say I want to make it 15 meters across, and up 0. So just keep in mind that all of your points are in reference to the origin. So it's going over 15 and up 0. And now let's say I want to go up in the y direction 15, but to stay sort of perpendicular to my existing line. So what I would do is I'd type 15, comma 15. So as you can see, the exact coordinate of that point, the reference to the origin, is 15 feet and 15 feet. Okay, and then what I can do is I can just connect it to make a triangle like so, and just keep in mind that I have the O-snap option on, which is this option here, which sort of regulates how my lines can connect. So for example, what I can do is I can just automatically select, or very easily select, that endpoint to connect my lines. And as you can see, when I pull the cursor up, a triangle shows up. This triangle represents the midpoint. So for example, if I need to connect to the midpoint of another line, like so, it's very easy just using the O-snap option. Now let's say, for example, you want a little more freedom with your selection. Let's say you don't want to automatically select the endpoints or the middle points. Just click on O-snap, go to Settings, and as you can see, all of these settings here will allow you to regulate what sort of points that you can instantly or automatically snap on. So intersections, quadrants, vertical points, etc. But for now, I'll just leave it as it is, just because you have the default values, and these are the values that are just sort of most commonly used. Or this is the setting that's most commonly used. Another thing that I want you to note is the grid setting option. So let's say, for example, I want to have a certain type of grid here, just to make it easier for me to draw. What I can do is I can click on this option here at the bottom right. As you can see, the grid turns on. Now, as far as the spacing for each of the points on the grid, this can be adjusted as well. Just go to Settings. As you can see, the spacing is 1 meter by 1 meter, but I can change this, according to my needs, if I need to sort of wider spacing. And now the grid snap option is on. So let's say I want to draw another line. As you can see, I automatically sort of select or the cursor automatically selects just these points on the grid to make it easier to draw maybe shapes that are, I guess, more distinct or more clean. So I can turn the grid option off, and then also another thing I want you to know. So these three main options help you sort of to create your selection settings. So let's say, for example, I only want to draw straight lines. I can click on the ortho option. Let's draw a line. And as you can see, now I can only draw straight lines. So that's another useful option if you're just drawing sort of orthogonal shapes. Okay, so I'll turn that off, and I'll turn off ortho as well. So those are the main sort of selection setting options. Once again, grid, OSnap, and ortho, and you can use these options to help you to sort of create or to have maybe a more seamless sort of method of drawing. So it really depends on how you're doing your drawing. You know, these options may or may not be useful to you, but it's very easy to sort of switch them on and off according to your needs. So once again, to draw any sort of line, you can just select the line option, or what you can also do is you can go to the command bar, you can type line, press enter, and then it'll just ask you for the first point. So let's say it's 2, 2, press enter, and then let's say the next point is 5, 6. So once again, you know, all of your drawing can actually just be done through the command bar if, you know, that's what you prefer. It's just a matter of remembering what those commands, or what to type in for the commands, but it's all pretty straightforward. So for example, if I wanted to draw an arc, as you can see, arc is the name of the command in capital letters. So for the next time, let's say, for example, you just want to draw an arc by typing in the command bar, you just type in ARC, enter, and then it would ask you for the center point. But anyway, going back to the arc drawing option, just draw, let's say, for example, it'll ask you first for the sort of the 1 point, and then it'll ask you for the second point, which you can actually, it doesn't have to be sort of set automatically. What you can do is if you click on the work screen, you can stretch this point out as far as you like, but as you can see, the way the arc forms is really dependent on where that first point is. So the closer you get to your first point, the wider your arc can be. And this is particularly useful, and I'll just type in arc and show you how it's used. So now I just typed in arc in the command bar. It'll ask for the center once more, and I can type in a second point if I want something sort of set. So let's say it's 20, 20. So as you can see, now it's something a little more set if I have that. Or anyway, when I type it in at first, it'll be set. But that's how you use the arc command option. And this is particularly useful, you know, when you're doing certain types of slopes. And what you can do is you can connect from end to end, and you can sort of draw your arc that way. Okay. So let's say you want to get off the arc command option. Just keep pressing escape until the command cancels out, and then you can go back to maybe deleting certain shapes that you don't need, or certain lines that you don't need. Alright, so now let's go to the circle command. So this is very straightforward. Just click on circle. It'll ask for the center point, so let's make it 0, 0, or origin, and then it'll ask for the radius of the circle. So what I can do is I can press 5, and it's automatically created. But another thing I can do, so let's say I want to create another circle with the origin at 20, 20. Okay, so 20, 20. And then instead of typing in the radius, what I can do is I can just expand it according to my needs just on the screen. Okay, so that's the circle option. Okay, so next let's take a look at the surface option. Oh, so this option is when you want to create a surface from the curves that you've already created. So actually, let me go back for a second and make a circle. Okay. Now let's say I want to make a surface from this circle. So here, you know, right now the program just recognizes the line itself, but it doesn't recognize any sort of surface that fills in this enclosed area. So just go to Geometry, select Surface, and it'll ask you for the curve. So select that, and then just click OK. And as you can see, now our surface is created. So typically, what you would do is you would create your surface after you're done with all of your project geometry in the next step. So for example, let's say I'm done with all of my project geometry and I just want to create all my surfaces at once. what I would do is I would just press Smart Surface, and then all of these surfaces for all of my enclosed areas would be created automatically. And I'll show you how to do that in the end. It's very simple. But for whatever reason you want to create your surfaces individually, this would be how you would do it. Just also keep in mind that surfaces can only be created for enclosed areas. So you have to make sure that all of your points, or all of the sort of your different lines, intersect properly. Otherwise, the surface won't be created. Okay, so let's actually, and another way to sort of undo maybe a step that you didn't, that you want to undo, instead of having to, delete it manually, what you can do is you can just press this button, undo, and it'll sort of undo the last step that you did. Okay, so there's two different ways that you can delete, previous steps. So you can delete it manually, or you can click on undo. Okay, so a rectangle, that's another very straightforward command. So it'll ask you for the corner of the rectangle. So let's make it the origin once again. And then what you can do is you can specify the other corner point, or the diagonal, or you can just draw the rectangle manually. Okay, and then point, that's fairly straightforward. So let's say, for example, you already have a line created, but you want to create maybe another node or another point for that line. You would just do so using this option. So let's create a line. And let's make it 20 feet long, or excuse me, 20 meters long. Okay, and let's say I want to put a point, or maybe a certain node, maybe along 0, 18, that coordinate. So what I would do, I would just select point, and I would just specify it just based on the coordinates. Okay, so that point is actually up there, because I put, okay, so it should be 18, 0, so sorry about that. So 18, 0, but you get the idea. So you can create as many points as you need, you just have to enter in the coordinates, and then using these points you can actually maybe more easily create other lines. So say, for example, I want to create another line, I'd be able to automatically select the points that I've specified here. Okay. So now let's take a look at some of these options here. So these options transform and modify. What these do is they are ways to sort of modify or to sort of move geometry that you've already created. So what we'll do is let's create just a simple rectangle, and let's use these options here. These transform options to do certain things with this triangle, or excuse me, the square. So first let's try the copy option. That's fairly straightforward. It'll ask you for the object that you want to copy. So what you can do is you can select single lines to copy, or you can select entire, sort of sets of lines. So let's say we want to copy this entire sort of set, or this entire rectangle here. So we'll select all four, and then press enter once you've selected everything you need. And then it'll ask you for a base point. So pretty much just a point of reference that you want to use when you're moving your object. So let's say we want to select this bottom left corner here, and then once you've selected your base point, what you can do is you can sort of copy this rectangle just through how you move your cursor, or you could specify the exact coordinates over here on the command bar. So here I had one triangle rectangle, and now I have 3. Okay. So another sort of shortcut that you might want to use is, let's say, for example, I wanted to copy one of these lines, but I just want to copy one of them, and I just want to sort of offset it. So instead of typing and using a copy option, what you can do is you can type offset in the command bar, press enter, and it'll ask you for the offset distance. So let's say the offset distance is like 5 meters. Then it'll ask for the object. So let's say, for example, let's say we want to offset these over here. And as you can see, each of these is offsetted just about 5 meters up. So let's say I want to offset this going down. I'd select the line, and I'd select the below it now instead. So now it's offset 5 meters down. Also, what you can do is you can offset this 5 meters to the left and 5 meters to the right. Okay, so let's try this again. So the offset distance is 5. That's good. So we'll offset this. And then, so it's very easy just to offset it just according to your needs. This is a matter of selecting the coordinates, selecting the objects, specifying the distance, and then just selecting in which direction you want the object or the line to be offset. Okay. So another command that's available to me is move. So once again, let's draw another rectangle. So instead of copying it, I want to move it. Just select geometry, select move, and let's select the entire object. Press enter. Once again, it'll ask for a base point, and now instead of having it copied, the object will be moved. Okay. So scale. So now this is another very important tool to use. So a lot of times, let's say for example, you import an AutoCAD drawing directly into the program, but the scaling is off. Let's say you want the scale to, you want everything to be increased by a factor of 5 or 3. You just use this option here. So let's select scale, select the object, and then we'll just press enter. And it'll ask for a base point, so a point of reference. So let's select the bottom left corner again. And then it'll ask for a scaling factor. So as you can see, I can do so just automatically, or excuse me, I can just do so just by sort of moving my cursor over the screen. But for something more precise, what we can do is we can just enter 3. So let's say we want that rectangle to be 3 times larger than it is. Press enter, and now everything is scaled accordingly. So that's just another useful tool to use. Once again, especially when you have AutoCAD drawings that are imported. So a lot of times the scaling is a little bit off. So it's good to use a scaling function just to get everything to the right proportions. Okay, so rotate and mirror, these are other very straightforward commands in order to rotate something. Just select your geometry, press enter, once again ask for a base point, and then you can rotate it according to your needs. And also you can specify the rotation angle as well. Okay, and then mirror, another straightforward command. So let's say I want to mirror this entire object here. So I'd select this object and press enter, and then you'd have to select the first point of your line. So let's just select just an arbitrary point, just the center here. And as you can see, it sort of works like another it sort of works like a rotate. And then this one gives you the option to delete your original object. So let's now say, for example, I don't want to, so click no. So now I can create sort of different variations or different mirror images of a geometry I've already created. So it's very similar to the rotate option, just depending on how exactly you want to create your mirror image. You'd either use mirror or rotate. Obviously, if you have a mirror image that you want to create, mirror is your more convenient one. Whereas if you just want to sort of rotate a single shape without copying it, rotate would be your better option. Okay, so that covers the transform commands. Now let's go to the modify commands. So now once again, these are specifically useful for when you're drawing a project sort of on your own. So let's say, for example, instead of importing your drawing from CAD, you want to just do the drawing or do the project drawing on the program directly. These commands are particularly useful just because they allow you to make certain modifications that are typically done when you're creating your own drawing or you're making your initial draft. So what we'll do is, let's just start over here. Let's delete all this. All of your lines are intersecting. So first let's create sort of a series of lines. That are intersecting here. Okay, so as you can see, the lines clearly intersect. But let's say I want these lines to be segmented. So now, because these lines intersect, I want each of these to be separated by their intersection points. What I would do is I would just go select just intersect, this option. I would select, and as you can see, it'll ask you for the entities to select. So select all of these, press enter. And as you can see, now all of my lines are intersected. So now this is useful if for whatever reason I need to separate my lines or I need to separate them based on their intersection points. I would just use that option. Okay. So now let's say, for example, let's say I have a line going across the top here. And And let's say I want these lines to sort of extend towards these towards this longer line here. So I would just use the extend option. So just go to extend, and it'll ask you for the boundary object first. So this will be our boundary object. Let's press enter, and then it'll ask you for the objects to extend. So we can just extend this and this. And what it'll do is it'll automatically sort of extend your lines towards that boundary that you selected. And then once again, let's say I want these lines, or say I want this line to be divided by the intersection point. I just go to geometry, go to intersect, select these entities, press enter, and now it's been divided. So those are the main, those are what these two functions do. Okay, so now let's use the array option. Let's say I want to create sort of an array. Say I want to sort of make a series of mirror images of a certain object. So let's say, okay, what we'll do is we'll delete all of these. Or actually, let me just delete all of this. And we'll draw a rectangle. And let's array this rectangle. So here it'll ask for the entity that we want to array. Enter. So let's make it 3 by 3 array. And the distance between the rectangles, let's make it 2. And the vertical spacing, let's make that 2 as well. So we'll make it symmetrical. So here you go. So that's how you create your array. So that isn't a very widely used option, but it's always good to know, what's available to you. So just using this option, you can create, sort of a large series of, various entities, just according to your needs. Okay, so now let's go over how to use the trim option. So let's draw another series of lines, or another set of lines. So let's say we have a line here that intersect, and I want to trim this edge off. Just go to geometry, go to trim, and then first it'll ask you for the object, the boundary object, so it's like that. And then select the object to trim, so just click on the piece that you want trimmed off. And it's that simple. So once again, that's particularly useful when you're doing your own drawings and you have certain parts that are overextended. You can just use that trim option to clip the edges. Okay, so offset I previously went over, but I'll review it one more time just to sort of to go over it again, just because it's a very widely used option. Just click on offset, select the object that you want to offset. So this is just another way to sort of to copy your images. So select the object to offset, so that. Specify the offset distance, so let's make it 5. And then select the point of the side, so there we go. So just depending on the side that you choose, it'll offset in that direction. Okay, so now we're almost done. That are used in the CAD-based drawing commands. There are a couple of other commands like chamfer and fillet that are used for sort of making beveled edges, but I won't go over those for now just because they aren't used very often. But if you want to sort of learn how to use them, you can just look them up on the manual, and we'll go over sort of step by step how they're used. But what I want to do is I just want to wrap up with sort of a sample drawing, so that way you can see maybe sort of how all of these commands are used to create like an actual project drawing. So let's draw, for example, just like a sample slope stability project. So first we'll draw a line specifying our first point, 0, 0. And we'll turn the orthogonal option off. Let's say I want the line to be, or the base of the slope anyway, to be about maybe 20 meters across. So once again, I'll just do 20, 0. So that'll be the the bottom or the base of my slope. And what I can do is I can either draw it just through the work window itself, or I can specify a coordinate. But just because I think it'd be a little easier, let's turn on the grid and let's just draw it based on the grid. So it's an even 20 meters across, so that's why it's sort of lining up perfectly with the grid. But just using the grid, and these are increments of, I believe, 1 meter. So here, let's say I want it to be the base to be maybe like 2 meters up. So there we go. And let's say I want the foot of the slope to be 4 meters sort of across like this. So just using the grid, I can very easily tell or easily create my dimensions. And let's say that's it for now. And then I'll just create sort of the back end of the slope over here. I'll create a top and then I'll connect it. So now I need to create another line. So once again, instead of selecting the line option, what I can do is I can press line, enter line in the command bar. That's my first point, so let's start with the coordinate, or excuse me, the origin. So here we go. And what I can do is, instead of counting with the grid, along the grid, what I can do is I can just type in the coordinates. So it'll be 0, and let's say I want it to be maybe 8 meters high. So there we go. And then now I can just count off maybe 4 meters going across, and then now I can just turn the grid option off, actually. Turn ortho off. And now I'll be able to sort of seamlessly snap just onto that base point there. So as you can see, when I have ortho and ortho on, I can only really, when I have ortho on, I can't sort of directly snap on here. So I need to turn that off because ortho sort of restricts my movement to just, completely straight lines from that base point or that reference point. So just turn that off. And then turn grid off too, because what happens is each of these points can be automatically snapped on, so it makes it a little harder to choose the point I want. So just click off grid, and now I have sort of the basis of my slope. Now let's say, for example, I want to maybe add another layer to this slope. So what I can do is, I know that this is, what I can do is I can just draw a line going through the center here. So just make sure that under settings for OSNAP that you have midpoints turned on, which I do. So all of my midpoints, when I sort of go over any line, eventually I'll have I'll sort of move the cursor over the midpoint, and that sort of a triangle will come up to represent it. So that's on, which is good. So let's draw a line going from here. And let's actually, since, because I can't sort of automatically snap on the point that I want going across, and because when I move it over, the line isn't perfectly straight, as you can see, there's sort of those breaks in the line that sort of show that you're going maybe a little up, that you're going up or down. So turn ortho on, so that'll restrict you to a straight line, and then also just go past the point that you need, like this. And now, instead of having to try to zoom in and make sure that I'm touching that point, that I'm reaching that line, I can just draw over it, and then just go to geometry, and then trim, and then have that line trimmed. Okay. So here I have one level, and let's say, for example, maybe I just have another level. And we'll just sort of pick an arbitrary point for now, and then turn ortho off. So these represent my soil layers. And once again, I can just choose, instead of having, let's say, for example, I know within reason that my point or the second layer passes over here, I can just go past it here. And then I can just use the trim option to trim that line. And then, let's say I want to trim it again, just type in trim, select your base object, there you go. So now I have, just the basic geometry of my slope. And now that I'm ready to, maybe add some material properties, I'm ready to create my surfaces as well. So in order for me to assign material properties to these enclosed areas, the program needs to have sort of surfaces for each enclosed area. Because until you do so, the program just recognizes it as a series of lines. You can't assign sort sort of attributes to these enclosed surfaces, or in these enclosed areas, until you create these surfaces. Oh, but another thing I noticed here is that this line, it hasn't been divided by this connecting point here. So in order to do that, just go to intersect, select that. Oh, sorry about that. Go to intersect, select your entities, so these two lines here, and then just press enter. So as you can see, now the line's been divided accordingly. And I can do the same thing. Let's say, for example, for whatever reason, I want this line to be divided by these two intersection points. Just go to intersect, select your entities, and then press enter. So now it's been divided accordingly. Okay. Okay. So now going back to surfaces. As I said before, you can create your surfaces individually, just using the surface option, but really the best and most convenient way to do it is using the smart surface option. So with this option, the program just automatically recognizes enclosed areas and creates your surfaces for you. So just click on that. And as you can see, now I have 3 surfaces here. So now if I window each of these surfaces, I can apply a specific ground material property to each. But it's really important to just to save your surfacing for the very end. So just create your project first, make sure all the geometry you create is correct. And then once you're ready to assign material properties and loads and to move forward with your project, just go to Geometry and Smart Surface, and all of your surfaces will be created for you. So just keep in mind that any enclosed area will have a surface created once you use the Smart Surface option. So for example, if you have maybe an enclosed area that you don't want to have a surface created, you might want to use to individually create your surfaces just to avoid having a surface that you don't need. But another thing you can do is you can actually just delete the surface itself. So here, if you go to the work window, each of these corresponds to a surface that's just been created. Let's say I don't want this surface to exist. Let's say, for example, there's an enclosed area, but for whatever reason I don't need any sort of material property assigned to it. I'll just select it, press delete. As you can see, it's gone. And if you want to undo it, say you actually realize that you do need an enclosed area, or you did need a surface assigned there, just click undo, and you should be good to go. Okay, so that about wraps it up for the sort of basic tutorial on geometry. I hope you all found this useful. Feel free to contact us. I'm sure you have either my number or my colleague Beta's number, where you do a lot of the geotech work here. So never hesitate to contact us if you have any questions about the program or if you need help with a particular project that you're using the program for. So thank you again for your time and attention. I hope you all found this useful, and good luck using the program. We're sure that it'll continue to be a great help to you all.